The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome. I'm Roger Stone, a grizzled veteran of 50 years in the corroded rectum of the two-party system. I'm a veteran of 13 national presidential campaigns, and I survived the Mueller witch hunt, which we now know was a part of a seditious conspiracy to remove the man improbably elected in 2016. President Donald Trump winging his way to Asia this weekend, reporting from friends who were on the plane. He didn't sleep a wink on the way, yet he hit the ground running. He actually did his little version of the Trump dance on the tarmac at Malaysia, which, of course, the Asians were delighted. He's headed to Japan. The recent political developments in Japan are very good news for the United States of America, and particularly for Donald Trump. Japan has now selected Sanai Taichi as their new prime minister. She is the first woman prime minister in the history of Japan. I think Japan has lacked a leader with the resolve to take the communist Chinese, who are encroaching on Japan constantly, take them on and defeat them. Since the late Shinzo Abe, you'll recall he was assassinated by the very same dark forces who tried to kill President Donald Trump. But interestingly enough, you have had a surprise development in which Taichi, who is a fervent Japanese nationalist, a strong social conservative, a libertarian, and get this, she's also a heavy metal drummer, says that she was risen by a new coalition of the ruling liberal Democratic Party, which is their conservative party, and the Innovative Party, which is a libertarian party. This knocked the current government, which is in the control of the more liberal party, on their heels, kind of like Donald Trump's surprise election in 2016. That government is believed by many to be heavily infiltrated by the Chinese communist Taichi, like Shinzo Abe, and like her mentor, former Prime Minister Taro Aso, ardent anti-communists, free traders, very pro-U.S., very anti-World Economic Forum agenda, non-globalist. So this is a shock to the left, particularly a shock to the communist Chinese. She is known to craft public policy designed to create economic jobs, to get more women into the workplace. Also, she has been very aggressive about both taxes and spending. She's called for a tight crackdown in current illegal immigration, which she recognizes as an issue throughout Europe and the world. She is, to say the least, extremely skeptical of Chinese influence over Japan, demanding anti-espionage laws that would levy severe penalties against all those aiding in subversive activity, particularly the Chinese. This is aimed at some in the state's politics in the left party. I'm very impressed with her, watching her so far. She is unafraid to make these politically correct opinions. She's strong on illegal immigration. And, of course, one of her very first decisions since she became prime minister was to create a minister of immigration with the stated goal of deporting illegals. Does this sound familiar? So Donald Trump, I believe he meets with her on Monday. This will be, to say the least, historic, just truly historic. I'm not sure what Steve Bannon is up to, but I see him all over the internet saying that Donald Trump will be president in 2028. And when it is pointed out to him that violates the Constitution and the law, he says, and I quote, "There's a plan for Trump to run and win in 2028, which is very creepy. I mean, first of all, he knows better. To be very, very clear, the 22nd Amendment of the U.S. Constitution explicitly prohibits anyone from being elected to the presidency more than twice. regardless of whether the terms are consecutive or non-consecutive. So Donald Trump, for example, served one term from 2017 to 2021. He's now in his second term from 2025 to 2029. This limit on terms was ratified in 1951 after Franklin Roosevelt wore in 4 terms, and the only other president to serve 2 non-consecutive terms is a New Yorker, very much like Donald Trump. So I'm not sure what Steve Bannon is doing here other than trying to get clicks, trying to build viewers for his website. I mean, look, people say to me, what's your beef with Bannon? What's your beef? It's really very simple. As the New York Post reported, Steve Bannon gave sharply contradictory accounts under oath of his discussions with me regarding WikiLeaks, as concluded by the New York Post. On January 16, 2028, roughly 5 months before he left the White House, Bannon testified, as I did, for the House Intelligence Committee repeatedly that he and no political operative had discussed WikiLeaks or its boss, Julian Assange, at any time during their relationship. That testimony was declassified and made public. Yet Bannon showed up on the stand during my trial as a witness, surprise witness brought in by Robert Mueller. That was November 8th, 2019. He was called as a witness for the prosecution, and he essentially said that I had raised this issue with Bannon on the phone in every phone conversation we had in 2016, which is clearly untrue. He went on helpfully to say that he considered me the campaign's access point to WikiLeaks, which would be news to me. Anything I said about WikiLeaks, by the way, appeared in the public domain. Yes, I did say WikiLeaks would have gigantic disclosures before the election, but then Julian Assange said that on the record multiple times. Federal prosecutors headed by Andrew Weissman tried to pretend that was somehow proprietary or a secret. Again, it was a frame job just to try to pressure me to testify against Donald Trump. But you can't blame me for being somewhat perturbed by Bannon's lying on the stand. If quoting George Washington University professor Jonathan Turley, who examined both of the transcripts of Bannon's testimony, he said, and I quote, "He has 2 diametrically opposed sworn statements in a high-profile controversy with dozens of attorneys in attendance." Throughout the transcript, Bannon insisted that there was no contradiction. I expressly directed my lawyers to raise a stunning conflict. But there's no question that Turley agreed with that analysis. By the way, kudos to the New York Times, New York Post, the only outlet that ever posted this information. Now, as far as my relationship with Steve Bannon, I'm a Christian and therefore I have forgiven. But nowhere does it say that you should forget. And I haven't. In any event, I am Sicilian. You have to remember that. Marco Rubio's really, if you had told me that Marco Rubio, the neocon, in all truth, a man who was initially a protege of Governor Jeb Bush and then transcended Bush by challenging Bush in the 2016 presidential election, 2 big statewide candidates from Florida, that's an issue. The Bush people were furious. I supported Marco Rubio's right to run. I also defeated his candidacy in the Republican primary against Governor Charlie Crist, who was then calling himself a Reagan Republican. Then he became an independent, and now he's an Obama Democrat. I don't know how you do that. Reminds me of that joke. A Republican, a Democrat, and an independent walked into a bar, and the bartender said, "Hi, Charlie." In any event, I supported Rubio in that contest. Rubio was running as the Tea Party candidate. And although I was a strong supporter of Donald Trump, I always felt that Rubio had every right to run, and that waiting your turn sense of entitlement that surrounded Jeb Bush's inevitable candidacy was really offensive to me. It's like their slogan was, "Father, Father, it's my turn to be king." Rubio rose from the politics of Miami-Dade. He's always been, therefore, a fierce anti-communist, which is very appropriate for this time. Obviously, he's always been a hard-liner when it comes to Cuba. It's one of the reasons I've always liked it. But now I really think he's fulfilling his expertise in the region in his new role as Secretary of State. Rubio has not hesitated to take on the corrupt narco-Marxist regimes across South and Central America. They are challenging the status quo everywhere. Other than President Javier Milei of Argentina, a personal friend of mine, and President Nayib Bukele, yet another personal friend of mine. Bukele keeps sending me, he owns a coffee plantation, he keeps sending me this great coffee. It's a gift. I keep writing thank you notes. But they're not, the left chastises those two as radicals and authoritarians because they've embraced anti-communism. No, the real problems here in the region Marco Rubio is dealing with, first and foremost, is Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro. Maduro is, despite his new positioning as being anti-drug trafficking, he's a Marxist drug trafficker. He is a merchant of death. I believe he must be removed. He has a barely functioning socialist system. The Cubans still are not free, and they still have a brutal regime that really holds the country back, suppresses personal freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. They are a danger. Honduras should not be overlooked. The Biden department basically framed Hernandez, the president of Honduras, who was ardently against the narcos. They framed him as a drug trafficker. Their only two witnesses were two convicted drug traffickers. They had no evidence. The Biden Justice Department removed this guy to make way for Xiomara Castro, who, if she isn't related to the Castros in Cuba by blood, she should be. She's a Marxist, and there are drugs flowing through Honduras. So there's a lot of problem here in the region, and Marco Rubio, I think, is the man to handle this. The extremely popular bombing campaigns targeting the narco boats. I saw James Lankford, the backstabbing rhino Republican from Oklahoma, saying, well, if Joe Biden had bombed boats, we'd all be objecting, but we're not objecting to this. This guy is, after he double-crossed Trump on immigration, playing stooge for the Democrats, claiming that a bill that would have grandfathered 2 million illegals was essential to pass immediately on a bipartisan basis until Donald Trump said no. It's not the snake in the grass that gets you, it's the asp in the bosom. I can deal with the socialist, progressive, Marxist, left-wing Democrats. I know what their agenda is. It's the moderate, weak-kneed, lily-livered, white wine swilling, brie cheese eating, country club belonging, Volvo driving, establishment Republicans you got to keep your eye on. You're listening to The Roger Stone Show, and I'll be right back.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
In bombshell news, new documents have just been released showing that Attorney General Merrick Garland, that's Joe Biden's Attorney General, personally signed off on the Arctic Frost operation, which gave Special Counsel Jack Smith extra constitutional rights to spy on U.S. senators as well as private citizens in his sprawling lawfare campaign against Donald Trump. They compiled a list of 85 individuals and institutions who were to be probed despite any specific probable cause of a crime. When Richard Nixon's aides compiled that, they called it an enemies list, and the left went crazy. But there's no screaming about the Arctic Frost list, which is outrageous. Two of the Republican senators who were hit with wiretaps, Senator Bill Hagerty of Tennessee, Senator Josh Hawley, two of my favorites, also Tom Tuberville of Arizona, Coach Tuberville. If you know him well, you're allowed to call him Coach. He's one of the finest Christian gentlemen I've ever met. It is amazing that their entire illegal coup to take down Trump is dismantling before your very eyes. It will not be long until it is proven that Jack Smith was coordinating with the state prosecutors in New York, Alvin Bragg, and Letitia James, as well as Fannie Wilson, the gang in Georgia, and the prosecutors in Nevada and Arizona in an attempt to destroy Donald Trump. When we come back, I want to start to focus on the case of a retired New York police detective named Michael McMahon. This is a shocking story. China has been on an intelligence rampage inside our country for a number of years, even before the Trump term. The Obama-Biden team dismissed the Chinese threat, basically ignored the Biden family receipt of foreign bribes from China, and then dissolved the Chinese-focused initiative to watch the espionage going on by the Chinese in our own country. A New York City police detective who's retired became a private investigator. He had a decorated and unblemished career of service to the New York City Police Department. But while working as a private detective trying to track down funds that belonged to an American client but had been embezzled by a Chinese illegal in the country, once he learned that, rather than prosecute the Chinese illegal who lied to get in the country, was a fugitive justice from Wuhan, they arrested and charged and incarcerated hero cop Mike McMahon. They claim that McMahon was being paid by a foreign power, but they presented no evidence whatsoever that he had been paid by anybody other than the American company from whom this Chinese chiseler had stolen. He's a hero, but right now he is still incarcerated. And his wife, Martha Byrne, you would recognize her from Days of Our Lives and As the World Turns, I guess it was. And she also played Lily, as well as Sister Rose. She got a lead actress Emmy for that. She was on General Hospital. She's a great actress. She's a great writer. She's a great philanthropist. But she joins us today as a wife and a mother to tell us what we can do to get this hero New York cop out of prison, where he was framed by the Biden Justice Department to hide the fact that the Chinese are running espionage against Americans and among Americans everywhere across the United States in their little police stations. The Chinese say that they're here to keep an eye on Chinese nationals, but folks, they're here to keep an eye on you and I. I'm Roger Stone. You're listening to The Roger Stone Show, and we'll be right back.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Roger Stone Show. Later on in the show, we're going to be visiting with fraud investigator par excellence, Sam Antar, with the latest on the Letitia James case. Meanwhile, a very similar situation is developing. The fraud investigators at the National Finance, the Federal Housing Finance Administration, these are people whose job it is to investigate mortgage fraud, learned that Senator Adam Schiff had made material misstatements and engaged in mortgage fraud, claiming both his home in suburban Maryland and a one-bedroom condo he has in Burbank, California, as his principal legal residence. That means he got a lower tax break. He got a state tax break. He got a lower mortgage rate, and he got a lower insurance rate. It also raises some questions about his eligibility to be a member of Congress or the U.S. Senator from California if you don't really live there, particularly if you're claiming principal residence as he did in another state. It leaked late last week that the U.S. Attorney for Maryland, no surprise here, a deep stater, and Deputy Attorney General Todd have concluded that there is not an enforceable Todd Blanche, that there's not an indictable or convictable crime here. But the FHFA director, Bill Pulte, sent a formal letter of referral with all the documents and details to the Justice Department months ago. So I think what Sam Antar is going to tell us is that the facts are what the facts are, and the documents tell the story, not your interpretation of what the documents say. Anyway, I want to go on back to this stunning case of Michael McMahon. In this incredible story of retired New York Police Detective Michael McMahon, it's just an up-down crafted narrative that develops when Michael McMahon becomes the villain because he stumbled on extensive Chinese espionage operations in the United States, and the government moved to protect that rogue Chinese government official. And instead of going after those who embezzled millions and lied to enter the country, they put Michael McMahon in jail and ruined his good name, despite the fact that there is no evidence to support the charges that they hit him with. Violating the Foreign Agents Registration Act, being paid by a foreign government, no evidence of that. And stalking. Stalking? What do private investigators do? It is horrifically contrived. It is a major act of duplicity, and it is an outrage that every American should be upset about. But no one should be more upset than Martha Byrne, because Martha Byrne is the 32-year wife of Michael McMahon. They have 3 children, and those children want their daddy home, and they want to know what happened here. Martha Byrne joins us today in the Roger Stone Show.
Oh, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good. I hope I set that up. We talked about it in the last segment as well. It's a somewhat baffling and complicated case because it is so circuitous and almost Kafkaesque. We are going to prosecute and jail the guy who stumbled into the crime, not the people who stole millions and entered the country illegally just because they're Chinese.
Yeah, and I think what's important, too, is that when my husband retired and NYPD, became a private investigator, and when he got this job, in the fall of 2016, it was routine. I mean, this was a routine case. The client called from New York and said that the money had been stolen from a family business from China, but the man had fled to New Jersey, and they wanted to find the money. They wanted to find their money. Very, very, very typical civil matter. Very routine, and my husband hired 2 retired NYPD detectives to help him on the case, documented everything, and did some surveillance, notified the local police every day. They did surveillance. I think he worked 5 days total on this case, made a few $1,000s, and sure enough, when he looked up, again, public record, this man had LLCs, millions of dollars of real estate, fancy cars, and he just did his report, handed it over to the client, never thought about it again. And then 4 years later, they come to my home before dawn and arrest him for violating the Foreign Agents Registration Act and interstate stalking. Now,
two nonviolent crimes that if they were going to charge you, they would simply contact your attorney and say, bring him in. That's what they should have done, yes. This is exactly what they did to me, as people know. CNN made sure that everybody saw it. I mean, for the first time, nonviolent crime of lying to Congress, they sent more people to arrest me than they sent after bin Laden.
It's unbelievable, Roger. It's truly shocking. I mean, the fact that the FBI, in their 4-year investigation in this case, never spoke to the 3 NYPD detectives, never spoke to the 2 active federal agents that my husband had spoken to about this case in 16 and 17. The FBI, out of the Red Bank office in New Jersey, never spoke to any of the U.S. law enforcement in this case in 4 years. They did speak to the Chinese. They did speak to the Chinese agents over and over again and let them flee. It's outrageous.
Yeah, that's really not surprising. The other day I was on X and I saw that George Pirro, the former head of the FBI office in Miami, was giving a speech someplace on cybersecurity. I said, I know that guy. He was the FBI bureau chief who approved the 6 a.m. raid on my home that cost the American taxpayers $1.1 million. And according to a sworn affidavit I have from a local police officer of the Fort Lauderdale Police, CNN, according to an FBI agent who barked at him, was given special permission to be 25 feet from my front door, while the rest of the media was in a roped-off area a half a mile from my home the morning of my arrest. So that FBI. Christopher Wray says, We can't have a man like Kash Patel head the FBI. It would tarnish the FBI. Dude.
Oh, please.
How many people did you have in the crowd on January 6th? Oh, you can't remember.
I can't remember. I mean, I'm Christopher Wray, what he did to my husband and my family. And, you know, the fact that they protected a CCP Wuhan official who was here illegally and painted him as a dissident and a victim. I have to tell you something. The fact that nobody in the media covered that and that didn't come to the trial when this guy testified, not a dissident, Wuhan official, here illegally, and the FBI knew he had lied on his immigration, he had money laundering, wire fraud. I mean, they knew his crimes. My husband, when he got this case in 2016, when he Googled his name, all that came up was that was accused of embezzlement in China. That was it on Google.
Martha,
so there was no information.
Talk about your husband's service record, because this is just not your average, every ordinary cop.
Not at all. Far from it. He earned 78 medals while he was on the NYPD. He worked in narcotics. He worked in the street crime unit, the elite street crime unit, where when Giuliani came in and cleaned up all of New York, my husband was one of the hand-picked top 200 cops in the NYPD to stop the crime. He was a school safety sergeant in the Bronx, where he was in charge of 40 public and private schools to protect children and their safety. And then he was in a severe car accident during a police chase in the Bronx and hit a telephone pole to 50 miles an hour, which ended his police career. And he was devastated. Roger, he was in a shootout in Times Square on New Year's Eve in 1993, where there was a full-out war going on in Times Square on New Year's Eve. Do you know how many people's lives he saved that night? Nobody was killed. I mean, my husband's a hero who ran into burning buildings, took on gunfire, earned the Combat Cross for bravery for a gang shooting in the Bronx. Do you think for the million years that he would risk everything, his family, his reputation, for a few $1,000s to work for the Chinese government? It is so outrageous. He worked part-time as a private investigator, did so many pro bono cases, Roger, I can't even tell you. He was a hero, and what they've done to him and how they betrayed my family, and I just am outraged. And of course, he said, I did nothing wrong. I committed no crime. Everything I did was by the book. I was never asked to do anything illegal. So we fought it. Roger, it's going to be 5 years this Tuesday. They put my husband in federal prison. The judge gave him 18 months in federal prison because she said he had no remorse for what he had done. He didn't do anything wrong. And the victims, first of all, did not ask for any jail time for him, no restitution, could not identify him in court that they had followed him, never filed a police report that they had been followed by anybody, couldn't identify the car. There was no record of any kind of stalking. Can you imagine? Can you imagine in a world that this could happen?
Yes, I've been through this meat grinder. I stood there for 55 minutes while a federal judge told me that I had been convicted of the crime of covering up for Donald Trump, something I was neither charged with nor did the government ever produce any evidence of at my trial. Why? I'll tell you why. Because there was nothing to cover up. The Russian collusion? Oh, that didn't exist. The WikiLeaks collaboration? Completely unproven. Julian Assange said repeatedly in multiple interviews he would release some material on the Democrats and Hillary Clinton in October. Oh, Stone knew that. Everybody knew that. I've seen the system. The judge in my case would not let me argue that I was selectively prosecuted or that my prosecution was politically motivated. Let's see if the judge in the Eastern District of Virginia tells Letitia James's lawyers that she can't argue that. Want to bet that this Biden judge doesn't?
And also, Roger, there was no probable cause to open any search warrants on my husband. They knew he was innocent since 2017, and they spied on my family for years with no probable cause. Does this sound familiar, what we're hearing about how there's falsification of evidence at trial? They suppressed evidence. We could not talk about my husband's career to the jury. They falsified evidence on the first day of trial. And I thought, how is this possible? Where am I in reality here right now? That, how do you remedy this? It's almost impossible if you don't have the finances. I mean, to fight this, as you know, Roger, millions of dollars it costs. But my husband did nothing wrong. And I said, we have to fight this to the end to exonerate and clear your name, because you are a hero who sacrificed your entire life, a 9/11 first responder, and this is how they're treated. This is how the DOJ in the Eastern District of New York and a small office in Red Bank, New Jersey, can not just destroy our lives, Roger, but the national security of this country was put at risk because they were colluding and helping and assisting these alleged victims with their immigration, with a civil lawsuit against them. And we have documentation that we were not allowed to even ask these alleged victims about on the stand. We were not allowed to ask them about their crimes.
Can you imagine charges against a decorated New York police officer in which he is not allowed to discuss his record of service to the people of New York, and the many, many times he put his life at risk, and the numerous medals and commendations that he won for his bravery in protecting the people of New York? But you're not allowed to say any of that at your trial. Martha Byrne has written a terrific book, In the Interests of Justice. You can go online into Amazon or any place where books are sold. It's published by Post Hill Books. It's an eye-opening book. Every American should read this because, well, if it could happen to Martha and her family the way it happened to my family, it can happen to you. If you want to help Michael McMahon, you can go to pipehitters.fund.com. And there's a special page there set up to help Michael McMahon. Let me make sure I got that website.
It's the Pipe Hitter Foundation.
Pipe Hitter Foundation.
Foundation.org.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the Eddie Gallagher's foundation. You know, the retired Navy SEAL chief that was falsely arrested for murder. He started that foundation and has been supporting us, and they're amazing. So thank you so much. You know, we have to fight. We have to fight so this doesn't happen to more people in the future.
Yeah, when I read that it was called the Pipe Hitter Foundation, I thought it was some pro-marijuana group, so I had to look at it.
That's a whole other show. That's a whole other show.
I had to put it. I had to take a look myself. All right, I want to thank our guest Martha Byrne. Folks, go to the Pipe Hitter Foundation, pipehitterfoundation.org, and give a generous contribution. Mark and his family, his lawyers have to be paid. His family has to be supported. He is going to be back with us. I have asked President Trump to pardon him. I wrote a long piece on.
Thank you.
A long piece. You can see it at StoneZone.com. Go through all the reasons why he should be pardoned. I hope the president.
Thank you. God bless you, Roger. God bless you.
All right.
I hope he does. If he hears this story, Roger, I think he's going to be outraged. They've done this to an NYPD hero, just like they did it to him, just like they did it to the president. They made up a case and went after an innocent man, and it is outrageous.
All right. Thank you, Martha. God bless you. Folks, you're listening to The Roger Stone Show, and we'll be right back.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Boy, the left-wing media and the Democrats have their knickers in a twist about President Donald Trump making substantial revisions to the White House, very much like Presidents Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, Andrew Jackson, Theodore Roosevelt, William Howard Taft, Calvin Coolidge, Harry Truman, the most extensive renovations, John F. Kennedy, minor, most preserving the aesthetic value and restoring some of the internal antiques and furnishings. And, of course, Richard Nixon very famously put in a bowling alley. At the time that Nixon did that, he closed down a section that had been used by the press. A certain irony there. The left went crazy, but the truth is President Nixon didn't close down any part of the White House. The one-lane bowling alley he added in 1969 was constructed in an existing underground workspace beneath the North Portico driveway. It was a basement-level area already designated for support functions like storage and utilities. So it was repurposed. It didn't disturb the main residence or any of the public areas. It was funded 100% by private donors rather than the taxpayers. Nixon was, of course, an avid bowler. I always remember the story of Ralph Perk, the mayor of Cleveland. He was a staunch Nixon man and a Republican. He was invited to a state dinner at the White House on a Thursday night, and he said, "No, I can't go. It's my bowling night." That was Richard Nixon's America. You recognize that the people in charge will flip out regardless of what Donald Trump does, but the facility was outdated. There is not a large enough meeting space within the White House confines. If you've not been in the White House, as most Americans obviously haven't, you really have a picture of it in your mind as being much larger than it is. The door jambs are low because when it was built, the average American man and female was much shorter. It has been reinforced several times. The president has the right to build a much nicer and more useful facility. The functions that took place in the old East Wing will be in a new expanded area of the facility, so we're not losing anything. But I'd kind of like to see a flashing neon light that says Trump, 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 but that would really drive his critics completely and totally crazy. ABC News political commentator Tara Setmeyer actually had the audacity to compare the White House renovations to the wreckage she had seen when terrorists struck the Pentagon in September 11, 2001. She said that it felt almost the same seeing the construction site at the White House as if it felt following the worst terrorist attack in America's history. As expected, Setmeyer was pilloried with comments mocking her for a stupid post because she was hired by ABC. She worked as a CNN commentator. Doesn't that make sense? I don't get my news from CNN for the same reason I don't drink out of the toilet. Chelsea Clinton jumped in to this fray. She took aim at the White House renovations, publishing an op-ed in the USA Today, which I guarantee you she didn't write, claiming that President Trump is wrecking the people's home and that the East Wing is now only a memory. There's nothing historic about the East Wing. We didn't even have an Oval Office until it was redone by President Taft, and Calvin Coolidge put a whole third story on the building. So the histrionics from the Democrats on this is nauseating. The public didn't buy into it during the false January 6th claim. The whole insurrection narrative never stuck with the American people. They're not going to buy this kind of crap now. Renovating the White House is well within Donald Trump's authority, and an elegant ballroom will add to its prestige, funded completely out of the president's own personal deep pocket. So this is a donation that he is making to the taxpayers of America. The fact that they are flailing shows that they have no issues to talk about other than their insistence that we add $1.5 trillion to federal spending to pay for health care for illegals. Now, since the federal government shut down, I have to ask the folks who are listening with us today, has this affected your everyday life in any discernible way? I mean, the mail is still being delivered. Social Security checks are still going out. There's still cops on the beat. So I think the American people suddenly realized that we never needed this giant bureaucratic monolith to begin with. Big government is something the Republicans talk about all the time. Now it's time to actually do something about it. This freeze, this shutdown, gives the president that opportunity. I'm Roger Stone, and I'll be right back.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
You know, I recently reread a book that I had read quite some time ago. It's entitled Blacklisted by History. It is the untold story of Senator Joe McCarthy and his fight against America's enemies. Senator Joe McCarthy of Wisconsin ran a one-man crusade claiming that the communists had deeply infiltrated our government and our academic and financial institutions. He was destroyed by the deep state, who tried to depict him as a ruthless, reckless drunk. But guess what? Joe McCarthy was right. It's all in this book. So now, using this and other research, I'm going to do a multi-part series to prove that McCarthy was right the entire time. Richard Nixon accused Alger Hiss of being a Russian spy. He was vilified. Hiss had gone to Harvard, and he belonged to the best clubs in New York and Washington. But when the KGB fell years later, when the Iron Curtain fell, we learned that Alger Hiss was indeed a Russian spy, and he was trying to collect nuclear secrets. So this series on McCarthy I've begun working on. I think you're going to enjoy it. Fighting Joe McCarthy, Tail Gunner Joe, as he was known to those many Americans who realized that he was right. Joining us now is one very interesting cat. He's become a really good friend of mine. His name is Paul Stone. No, we're not related, but if you look at our taste in shoes, we could be. I don't know where he is right now, but he's wearing Gucci's and no socks, which is what I'm wearing. So, but Paul Stone is a husband, he's a father, he's an entrepreneur, he's a deep thinker. He's thought about things. He's thought and researched our history so he can understand where we are in this moment, and then hopefully come up with solutions to the extraordinary problems the country faces. He's been very active in the precious metals business, where he's very successful. He is now dabbling in cryptocurrency in ways that are innovative that I'm not able to discuss with you because he's a thinker and a doer. He's written a terrific new book entitled 1971, where he correctly concludes that Richard Milhous Nixon, the man who got a strategic arms limitation agreement with the Soviets, the man who ended the war in Vietnam on a faster timetable than the Pentagon or the State Department wanted, the man who gave us the 18-year-old vote, the man who did away with the military draft, the man who desegregated the public schools, the man who unilaterally saved Israel from utter annihilation in the 1973 Yom Kippur War, launched the war on cancer, that he also sowed the seeds for our economic destruction when he decided to take America off the gold standard. This book is must reading. It has a great quote from my good friends actually, Larry Kudlow and Greg Kelly. They both appreciated the book as much as I did. 1971. You can get it on Amazon. Strongly recommend it to you, but I know only a little bit about this, Paul, and that is that Arthur Burns, who was the chairman of the Economic Council of Advisors, was opposed to taking America off of the gold standard. He was a traditional conservative economic thinker. He'd come out of the Eisenhower administration. Nixon had a high regard for him, but the flamboyant Texas wheeler dealer, John Connally, then the Secretary of Treasury, dazzled Nixon with his arguments as to why we should close the gold window, and well, it was all over then, but the crying. Tell us about this.
Yeah, and first of all, maybe the best part of the book, certainly at the beginning of the book, is the, is it the introduction that is written by the greatest Stone who ever rolled, and that is you, Roger Stone.
I was proud to do it.
I'm very honored to have earned the book, hopefully earned, and maybe my humble attempts at trying to be helpful earned you and Janine Pirro, Judge, Kudlow, and Greg Kelly to comment on it. Certainly one of my greatest achievements. If I never write another book, which I think about doing, this one is key. And and I can't do it justice on the radio, and it covers so much ground. But if you literally, just for the time that we have, think of how small the source of things generally is to how large, let's use the Big Bang, right? From what I read, I could be remembering this wrong, but literally every single thing that is in the entirety of the universe was the size of a Volkswagen burning at 1 trillion degrees. All of the mass, everything, it would have been beyond dense. Like we can't even fathom the density of 1 billion galaxies and 1 billion stars smashed into the size of a Volkswagen. I could be reading that wrong. That's how I remember it. So that tiny little mustard seed, if you will, I'm sure most of the audience knows the story, have heard it before, the story of the mustard seed, explodes, and now there's 1 billion stars and 1 billion galaxies. And so the source of what Nixon decided, and yes, I probably was a little too harsh or didn't frame correctly all of the good stuff he did. The book isn't about Nixon. It's about a decision that covered up a lie. So all the great stuff Nixon does, you have tons of fans of Nixon. People remember him fondly who knew him when he was operating. And then there's this one mistake. This is that Achilles heel. Like if we look at Napoleon, we're talking about this at dinner a few nights back, where how could he go after Moscow after marching for such distances, knowing if he gets stuck in the winter, he's going to be devastated. The supply they need to support 600,000 men, I believe it was, that's just too much of a precarious risk to take. And then he meets his match. So at the end of his career, after doing so many great things right, how could there be this deterrence? Nixon did so many things great, so many things right. And then he's being presented with Europe wanting its gold back that they sent to us after World War II so we could appropriately enlarge the financial system enough to reliquefy Europe and its needs to rebuild itself. And we got a taste, perhaps, of a bit more greatness on the planet, the United States of America, and wasn't enough. Like, they're starting to print money in 1960. Interest rates were 1%. This isn't going to be an econ lesson. Just understand, really low rates is the Fed saying there's no inflation on the horizon. We're on the gas pedal with both feet. Interest rates are 500% higher in 1965. So Nixon doesn't have, like, anything to do with that. That's happening during Kennedy, if I'm right.
Well, and then of course, Bill Clinton gives most favored nation trading status to the Chinese, creating our largest economic and military enemy. So there's plenty of presidential mistakes to go around. Yes. I would point out to you that in both of my books on Richard Nixon, Nixon's Secrets and Richard M. Nixon, The Rise and Fall and Rise of Tricky Dick, I acknowledge freely that this is, without any question, his single greatest mistake. Only up there with wage and price controls. They didn't work either. That was also John Connolly's hotshot idea.
Yeah. So I just wanted to give a little backstory that it was covering up a lie. That was the source of why the book needed to be written, because it literally led to, and it's going to take people have to read the book to actually understand why I'm making my arguments. I can't cover enough evidence on a radio show or any show.
Yeah, this book is, it's very broad. It's very big picture. It's very innovative. You've got some specific thoughts about the question of racism in America. And I think this was a particularly good part of the book, and a particularly one of the key things that I like to talk about. Also, you write about the war on drugs. I think we share the same view there. But there's a lot here, folks. I really urge you. This is not just about the gold standard. It's not just about Nixon at all. It's about why we are where we are today because of all of these bad decisions, many bad decisions, and how we may still be able to save ourselves. So I really I urge you to go get the book.
Thank you. Yep, it's on Amazon. Yeah. I would say that the biggest dynamic that changed with Nixon's decision is up until that point, from the Egyptians to then, everyone had been pretty much in pursuit of enough. We were just in pursuit of enough. And the minute you switch that dynamic to more has no endpoint. More never finds the day where it meets enough. More is exhaustive. It will exhaust resources. More is destructive. It has no endpoint. So when the government starts printing, guess what we need? We need more. You'll need more of an income because the government literally is what's causing the cost of living to go higher. What does that mean to anyone? It means they murdered the pursuit of happiness. It is impossible. But you will be in the pursuit. You just won't ever find it. Because you'll never get, from 70% of the country, the world, won't ever get their earnings up on top of their bills. Your earnings are going to be chasing after higher and ever increasing cost of living. That's evil. None of us asked to be born, right? None of us asked to be here. We're grateful, most of us probably, that we're born in America. Many others didn't luck out to have that. America was the first place there was freedom. It was the first country where you could just go out and create what you wanted. If you wanted to be a basket weaver, great. Be the best one that ever lived, right? If you wanted to go start a bank, go do that. Start a factory, go do that. You want to invent GM, Ford, Chrysler? Think of all the things that came out of the invention side of American society. Pretty much everything the world uses today. We've invented most of it, right? How? Because we were left alone. We were allowed to be at peace. We were then, therefore, creative. We weren't distracted. How hard is it to be creative? It's impossible to be creative if you're distracted and under the gun all the time. So when we look at the war on drugs, never should have been one. Never should have been a society that needed to anesthetize itself away from the misery. It couldn't figure out where it was coming from, and it couldn't figure out a way to resolve. Mothers in the workforce, great. You want to be there and your mother's at daycare? Great. It's up to you. It's your choice. Power to the people. But women always had the choice to go home. Now they don't. And in many generations now, daughters are growing up with moms at work, so they think that's the norm. Again, not a sexist argument. Do whatever you want, whatever you feel great, no judgment at all. But there are evil ailments to the ecosystem of human beings all around the planet because the government created the power, Nixon, for the government to have its very own financial power supply. Just like you heard about Bill Gates buying 3 Island because he wants his own power supply to power AI, that's the exact same thing. For the first time in human history, the government had its own source of money, aside from the scraps they lived off of due to taxation.
Yeah, it is really stunning. The question, of course, is, pardon me because I'm a little bit of a novice, but when we come back, I want to understand this. So the money in our pockets, the paper money that we carry around and use every day in those places that still accept it, is backed by nothing. It's backed by the full faith and credit of the United States, whatever that means. It's not backed by
routine.
Yeah,
right.
It's not backed by a
trick.
It's not backed by gold or silver or a basket of commodities. Well, okay, cryptocurrency. Yeah. What's that backed by?
Nothing real.
When we come back, I want to talk about crypto because I'd like to understand it better. And you're a brilliant guy, and you do understand it. So we'll be right back with author Paul Stone, entrepreneur, businessman, and friend, but not a member of the family. We'll be right back.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
You know, yesterday I had the high honor of being asked to join the Larry Kudlow Show to analyze the New York City mayoral debate, the second debate. I said that Andrew Cuomo demonstrated his superior knowledge of government. Zoran Mamdani, the artful dodger, showed his superior ability to understand politics. But Curtis Lewa demonstrated his superior understanding of New York. It was a very interesting debate. We don't endorse candidates here on the Roger Stone Show, but I must say I have been impressed with the scrappy campaign Curtis Lewa has put on, with lesser resources but a deep, deep knowledge of the city. And he fights onward. I don't see anybody dropping out of this race. And like others, I fear the socialist, high tax, soft on crime, collectivist, and authoritarian policies of Zoran Mamdani. All right, we're going to return to our conversation with Paul Stone. He is an entrepreneur. He's written a terrific book in 1971 that examines President Richard Nixon's decision to take us off the gold standard. But this book really connects the dots between government overreach, monetary policy failure, societal unrest, the economic pain that's being felt by millions of Americans today. Paul really does argue passionately for shrinking central government and restoring power to local communities. His voice really will resonate with anyone who reads this book. I think this is a very inspirational book. In this case, Paul Stone has thought very critically, and he's telling us how to act intentionally to challenge the downward spiral of this country. Paul, you and I are both enthusiasts of gold. The first time I met you, you gave me this little ingot that I carry with me every place. Does gold play some role in the salvation of America?
Yeah, absolutely. And just like, I mean, and this sounds funny, but it'll just be like chicken is generally associated with barbecue. And you're never going to come home and get a 3D printer on Amazon and get some chicken protein goop and print a chicken breast and go grill it, right? That's what our money is today. That's literally how fake it is. You can say, well, my paycheck just bought me a new car or a new set of tires or a bass boat or whatever. Yeah, I know, I understand. There's a propulsion behind it, but it is literally created stuff that shouldn't be here. And it's also creating, the number one thing it creates is the power, the need for more. And that's why Zohar Mamdani is running for governor. He's a legitimate candidate or mayor of New York City because he's offering more. And everyone says, I need more. And he's the one offering the handouts.
And it's free.
Everyone else saying, that's crazy.
Everything's free. Of course, nothing is free.
Right, because hopefully people hear that's the solution. We'll finally have enough. That's my point. You literally wouldn't have him running today if Nixon had never done what he did. Take Zohar back to the 80s. Put him in front of a camera and a mic. Does anyone want to hear what he has to say? No, because no one's interested in handouts. Why are they interested in it today? It's the people choosing him.
And strangely,
because they're trying to solve a problem the government's creating. That's what you'll get out of the book. You're going to get so much personal power. The book isn't about information. It's not about me selling them. It's about delivering awareness to you in a capsule that you read the book and you will be aware of how you've been a victim or fallen victim to government ineptitude. And that's all the governments, not just ours. But you wanted to ask about crypto, or I wanted to make a comment about racism real quick, but I don't have much time.
We have a minute and 13 seconds, so you have the floor.
So let's imagine the country of Kenya, which is one of the most powerful financial successes in Africa. It's pretty much all one race, right? So let's say we're talking about 1971, where their president decided to take them off the gold standard and print a ton of money. Well, what would you have in Africa? You'd have in our country, I think the top 1% is controlling 90% of the money. And that's what you would have in Kenya. Now here, in Kenya, no one would say that's racist, but they would certainly be a lot of poor people and a lot of struggling. Here we have a diverse culture system in America, and the wealthy, mostly white, have done extraordinarily well. And you have people of different minorities that are saying it must be racism why I can't do well. It's not. It's economic unbalance. It's economic evil.
All right. The book is 1971 by author Paul Stone, good friend. We're not related, so that's not why I put him on the show. I put him on the show because he's brilliant, and you need to read this book. We'll be right back.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Stone Zone. Do we have Sam? Excellent. So the country continues after this week, after Letitia James was required to travel to Virginia to enter a defiant, not guilty plea, where I think she fomented violence, said, if you're coming after me, you have to come through all of us. But I'm not sure what that meant. There is a certain irony here, and that is that Letitia James, the woman who bent the law and insisted that no one is above the law, is now being prosecuted for a crime that she herself has actually prosecuted a substantial number of New Yorkers for. You can always tell when Letitia James is lying because her lips are moving. Recall, just to set the table, she ran for Attorney General on a platform of I will get Donald Trump before she had identified any crime, and then she invented a crime because there is a state law against inflating your assets when you use them for collateral in getting a loan, but that doesn't take into consideration that the lender does their own due diligence and doesn't rely on your estimates. This was a non-crime. The Trump Organization borrowed $40 million, borrowed millions of dollars, paid it back with interest on time. The lenders made $40 million. They were happy. Nobody got cheated. There is no crime here, but she made it a crime. Donald Trump's the only person in the history of the Empire State to be prosecuted under this state law. Then they took a state law that puts a cap on the time that a woman or a man who believes they are the victim of a sexual assault can bring a civil case. They extended that statute of limitations so that E. Jean Carroll, a woman who seems wacky to me, could falsely claim that Donald Trump assaulted her in a department store dressing room. Little did they know that Mayor Eric Adams and Governor Andrew Cuomo would also be hit by sexual assault civil suits because of the extension and bending of the rules. So it is kind of fitting to me that Letitia James has been charged with mortgage fraud for allegedly lying about the status of a home she owns in Norfolk, Virginia, claiming it was a principal residence in order to skirt the taxes she would otherwise have owed if she were telling the truth. Of course, there's the other problem, which is if that was indeed her principal residence under New York state law, she would not be legally eligible under the Constitution to be Attorney General of New York. She can't have it both ways, but she is certainly trying to. And the media, whether it's the New York Times or the website lawfare.com, keeps insisting that there's no violation of law here, there's no crime. But Sam Antar, the white-collar fraud investigator who's examined and published more about this than anyone in America, has the receipts. And I think that's the real question. Either she did lie willingly, knowfully, to get these benefits, or she did not. And the documents tell the story, do they not, Sam?
Yes, there were 3 properties that she owned. The one that she's indicted for currently, because there's going to be superseding indictments, is the one that she claimed was her second home. The problem was when she claimed it was her second home, she told the insurance company that it would be she would be occupying the residence as a primary residence. The other problem that she has is that when she took it as a second home, almost immediately, according to her tax returns, she was renting it out. And she was not supposed to rent it out. According to her tax returns, she had no personal days in her home. So no matter which way you turn, you have a series of documents that each contradict the other. Now, that's just on that property. Then you have the second property in Norfolk, Virginia, called Sterling Street, whereby she represented, this is a few days before the Trump trial, that this was going to be her primary residence. And the loan closed on that basis, and it was recorded on that basis. But guess what? She was the Attorney General of New York. Then you have a third home in Brooklyn where she took out, I think it's 10 mortgages over 20 years, right? And each of these mortgages say the units on that property is 4, 3, 2, or 1. Not 5, because 5 is the magic number according to the certificate of occupancy. And 5 means it's a commercial property, not a residential property, different loan underwriting standards, different insurance standards. Then you have a fourth property that probably won't move on, is in 42 years ago, she bought a property, as Joe Gilbert pointed out, my colleague, she bought a property in Queens with her father, as father-daughter. But when she took out the mortgage, all of a sudden she married her dad. It was husband and wife.
Yeah, so you're exactly right. I looked at this on your site. So on the mortgage application, she says that they're man and wife, but on the deed, she correctly records it as herself and her father. That was because she needed his balance sheet at her tender age to qualify for the mortgage. Clever these criminals. But
you have here is a pattern of grift. Like the last couple of days I put out on Twitter, but I actually researched this much before I even looked into the mortgages, because that was the red flag that led me to look at the campaign expenditures. She spends $5,000+ on cab fare in Martha's Vineyard, which is a 9-mile wide island. What is she spending that kind of money on cab fare for? She's taking these expensive trips with her campaign money to Puerto Rico, and she's living the high life. This is a lady has a pattern of grift going back 42 years. It's not confined to the mortgages. It includes the campaign financing, campaign finance expenses. And one more thing is that her financial disclosures to New York have been false for about 6 years. It doesn't include some properties, doesn't include some mortgages. There's nothing that she puts her hand on is kosher.
Well, you also have, I think, a huge vulnerability. In fact, Eric Adams, the current mayor of New York, got indicted for this, where she has taken contributions that are not real, straw donors, and put them through New York City's 8-to-1 campaign finance matching fund system for her race for public advocate. That is defrauding the public using fake money that she took in through Act Blue. There's a massive project to track down her individual donors and ask the simple question, Mrs. Smith, Mrs. McGillicuddy, did you give these donations? Is this your credit card? And you're getting a 70% rate of those who are willing to be interviewed on their doorstep are saying, no, they never heard of Letitia James. They're not sure who she is. These are people across the country, not in New York State. When a conservative organization, a nonprofit in upstate New York, began this work just visiting with her New York donors, the Attorney General issued a cease and desist order using her authority as Attorney General to stop citizens from researching and investigating her campaign for Attorney General. That is a huge red flag. If I were you, Sam, or maybe Joel Gilbert, I'd take a very close look at her campaign incoming and outgoing expenditures.
Well, I would, but there's much more meat as we progress through the mortgage investigation. Joel and I are uncovering new things every day. We talk to each other, we bounce off of each other, and I'm sure whatever we have, the U.S. Attorney's Office has far more because they have the subpoena power.
Yeah.
Already they said they have 5 to 8 witnesses, okay, that are going to testify in the criminal case. I have a feeling it's going to be more. I have a feeling it's going to be much more. They haven't mentioned about flipping individuals, but I guarantee if 5 or 8 are cooperating and 3 or 4 aren't, they're going to indict them. So this is way from over. I know there's a sideshow whether Lindsay Halligan was properly appointed as Attorney General and that stuff. That's only a stall tactic. That's not going to change the facts on the ground. And the facts on the ground is every document she puts her signature to is falsified.
Yeah, no, it's not coincidental that James Comey, who's indicted in the same jurisdiction, and Letitia James, using Abbe Lowell, who could be the worst lawyer in America. I remember he represented my good friend Joe Bruno, the former Senate Majority Leader, who was completely innocent. Joe Bruno convicted on all counts. Then Abbe Lowell represented my friend Robert Torricelli, the senator from New Jersey, forced to resign from the U.S. Senate. And then more recently, he represented Hunter Biden. We know how that worked out. So that is her attorney. This guy will sign his name to anything. Doesn't even have to be remotely true. But both Comey and James, rather than confront the charges against them and rebut them, they're seeking to challenge the authority of the interim U.S. attorney, Lindsay Halligan. She's constantly denigrated in the media as an insurance lawyer, when in fact she was a partner in a major law firm where she headed their civil litigation division. She probably has more experience with juries than Letitia James has ever had. And she's a dogged and honest prosecutor who is pursuing this case. Also, I would have to say, Sam, many experienced criminal defense lawyers have told me that when you have crimes like this, the mortgage fraud crime and the bank fraud crime, you usually have downstream crimes such as tax crimes and insurance crimes.
Yes, correct. I would rather not talk about what I have provided or what Joel is researching on that issue because we don't want to compromise anything, but there are significant tax evasion issues. I'll leave it at that.
Well, I mean, look, that's the important thing people understand. They criticize Bill Pulte, who, the Federal Housing Finance Administration has a fraud department. People there investigate mortgage fraud every day. Those professional bureaucrat investigators, these are not political appointees, they say that this is a mortgage crime, just like they say it in the case of Adam Schiff. It's now reported
anybody will tell you it's a mortgage crime. Just look, she put a signature on at least 13 falsified mortgage documents spanning 3 properties over 42 years. That's not a clerical error.
But Abbe Lowell said that was just a typographical error. I mean, come on, give me a break. These people.
Well, I hate to say it to you, but defense lawyers are paid to lie. In most cases,
you make a very good point. Well, I think it's the same standard here. Look, they tried to rig the case in Comey's case to begin with. The U.S. Attorney Eric Siebert never disclosed that his father-in-law, his wife's father, was the godfather to James Comey's daughter. Therefore, he needed to recuse himself. Instead, he tried to wire a 51-page report to the Attorney General recommending why James Comey, unlike Roger Stone, who was charged with lying to Congress when I didn't, that James Comey, who did lie to Congress, should not be charged at all. And he never disclosed that. It shows that he does have ethical problems. He should have been fired. But the fact that both Democrat senators from Virginia favored his appointment and that he was ultimately not confirmed by the Senate, but put in his position by the federal judges in the Eastern District, virtually all of whom are liberal Democrats, tells you the story. Deep state judge is what you have here, and the courageous and incredibly smart Lindsay Halligan is going to pursue this case. They're challenging, rather than refute the charges against them, both Comey and James will challenge Halligan's authority because she's an interim U.S. attorney. She can serve under the Federal Vacancies Act for 120 days. That takes you into January. This trial is now slated for January 26th. So
this won't be tried January 26th, but go ahead.
And we don't know we don't know if and when there will be superseding charges. That's possible as well. It is amazing to me that the rhetoric of those who say, God, this is just another part of Trump's rampage of revenge and retribution against those who held him accountable. No, it's us and the president holding you accountable for the incredible crimes that you committed in your manic push to get rid of Donald J. Trump, to send him to jail. All of these New York cases, Alvin Bragg's case, where he can't state the underlying crime that Trump was paying to hush up. He can't define that for us. The E. Jean Carroll case. She was sexually assaulted in a dressing room. She claims that for the cover of a magazine she was wearing a particularly chic designer dress on the day she was assaulted. The problem was when you research it, you find that dress had not yet been designed or marketed. This is a woman who says on CNN in an interview with Jake Tapper with Anderson Cooper that she finds the idea of rape sexy. Also, by the way, she accused multiple other men of sexual assault in her life. No, I'm sorry. I think this was a put-up job. I don't think Trump is guilty. That's why I'm glad he's appealing that verdict. I don't think she's ever going to see that money. Just as he appealed and won in this vindictive attack by Letitia James. We'll be right back with Sam Antar of WhiteCollarFraud.com. Whatever you do, don't touch that dial.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we're back. We're talking to Sam Antar, editor and publisher of WhiteCollarFraud.com, one of the first investigative reporters to pick up on the 43-year crime spree by New York Attorney General Letitia James. I suspect that at this point, if I were an investigative reporter, I'd not only be looking at her donors, I'd be looking at her campaign spending, I'd also be looking at the state payroll and see whether there were any famous no-show jobs supplied by the political system in New York State. We've had a problem with this issue in the past. Those should all be examined. But the idea that Letitia James is the target of retribution because she held Trump to justice is people think that we have amnesia. That if we're tough and hold them to account now, that they'll really come after us later. No, they already tried to destroy us. They tried to destroy Donald Trump, keep him off the ballot, take every penny he had, and so on. So anyway, Sam, you want to talk about these emails?
Yes. What happened was there's a report out of CNN that the person that was prosecuted after Siebert left the office was fired by the office. Her name is Beth Usey. Okay, she was also dismissed after she wrote a memo saying that the case should not be prosecuted. It turns out that Beth Usey, who was right under Siebert and who took over, who was in charge for a while as Siebert was tossed out, she sent personal information of Letitia James and also case files to a personal email prior to a termination. So in other words,
to put this in some context, in an effort to tank this case, a story was given to NBC that said career prosecutors in the office under Lindsay Halligan believe that the case does not have merit and that this woman, Usey, had made that recommendation. This was prior to Usey telling her boss of this. They blamed it at the time on two low-level staffers, but the fact that Usey sent the government documents on her non-confidential personal email indicates that she herself may be the leaker. But that tactic failed. The idea there was to try to kill the indictment. It was a last-ditch attempt. But Lindsay Halligan, to her credit, Sam, she went to a jury of her of Letitia's peers. They were allowed to ask questions. And they concluded that there was a serious criminal charge here. This desire to not to be held responsible and to try to blame this all on Donald Trump. No, I think it is Letitia James's problem. I think her problems are just beginning.
Yes. First of all, Letitia James invented her own evidence. This is not Donald Trump. This is her own evidence that she put pencil to paper on way before, as far back as the Reagan administration and as far back when Donald Trump was a Democrat. So that doesn't hold water. But the key thing about this leak issue, okay, is that a U.S. attorney investigating a case sends information about the case to a personal email. What happened to that information after it reached a personal email, assuming that the allegations are true? What happened?
No, it is a perfectly legitimate question. The good news is that the New York Times, Lawfare.com. By the way, Sam, you destroyed this reporter, Anna Bauer. You destroyed her with the facts. The liberals hate it when you present the facts. I'm sorry to interrupt you. They're just trying to be relevant in the case that they're irrelevant on. Seriously. Everything that comes out of their mouths, everything that they put on paper relating to this case is kindergarten material. But go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, it is the fake news. As my good friend Sean Hannity has said on many, many occasions, journalism is dead in America. The New York Times, that's not a journalistic output. That's not a news organization. That's the propaganda front for the establishment, and mostly for the Bush, Clinton, Obama political establishment that has almost brought this country to its knees. There are so many holes in what they report I think those reporters who got Pulitzer Prizes for their tough investigative reporting into the Russian collusion hoax, they should give those awards back because their reporting is all proven to be false. There was no Russian collusion. Don't they give the Pulitzer Prizes back? I guess they should. All right, I want to thank our guest, Sam Antar, and thank all of our friends out there listening to the Roger Stone Show today. We'll be back again with more politics and some food.
Thanks for listening to The Roger Stone Show. You can hear The Roger Stone Show Sunday afternoons at 3. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?